So, Orsolya, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me and the people at the University of Waterloo today. I'm very grateful for you doing that.
Thank you
This,
very much for the invitation. I'm really grateful too.
well, your expertise is, I think, very valuable in understanding the impact that people's internet use might have and what they should be doing as they use the internet today. But I thought we'd begin by me asking you to talk a little bit about your background and you know the where you're coming from in approaching this subject.
Okay. So my name is Orsolya Király, and I live in Hungary in Central Europe, and especially in Budapest, which is the capital city, and it's beautiful. And actually, I highly recommend you to visit Europe, and if you visit Europe, to visit Budapest too. It's a beautiful city, and I started doing my PhD studies in 2011, and in the research topic of video game addiction. So that was my initial topic, and very luckily, I can still do research in this area today. Um, I am a staff member of Eötvös Loránd University now in Budapest, and I still work with my former supervisor, Zsolt Demetrovic, who is also a co-author of the article that you were reading. And He's a professor at our university, and he is dealing with the behavioral addictions in general. So not just video game addiction, but all kinds of behaviors that someone could be addicted to, like work or exercise or shopping or internet use or gambling. So there are several activities that give us enough pleasure for us to be able to be addicted from them. And my professor does research in all this area, and he's actually a kind of so he has a really huge international network of professionals in this area, and he also founded an international journal called Journal of Behavioral Addictions, so particularly in this field. And he also started organizing an international conference called International Conference on Behavioral Addictions, which which is usually takes place in somewhere in Europe, but last I mean 2 years ago it was in Japan. Before that it was in Israel. So it is an international conference, and like 200 or 300 professionals from all around the world take part in it. So it's kind of huge, and I'm really proud of my supervisor, honestly, to do this, to put this all together. And also we are able to work with these international partners. Also, we even have a partner from Yale University, um, and from China, from Japan. So we work with all these people, and we are mostly doing survey studies, so using questionnaires to study a lot of people. So we usually do not. So we do studies that measure a lot of people and like trends, behaviors in big lines, not like experiments or qualitative research, which is like into like one or two people or case studies and go very deep. We usually do these epidemiological studies with questionnaires. Um, but it's so this is what we do, and we work a lot online. So we do research online, and we talk online. We have all these meetings online with everyone from all around the world. So this is basically how we work in this area.
Thank you, and very very interesting, and we're going to talk more about it today. And one day I would love to come to Budapest. I understand it is a very
Please.
beautiful city. I'd love to be able to come someday. So you talked about the paper that you were involved in writing, which led to us having this interview. It was a paper that was written by 31 people providing guidance on people's internet use during the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of people are using it a lot more than they were before. And so understanding that and the impact it might be having and the guidance that you would give them is what we're going to talk about. But I thought we'd start by you telling me how you were put this paper together, how you were able to work with the 31 people, and how you would ensure that the guidance that people were being given was good guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So these 31 people are mostly those who are in our international network. But so from the beginning, so when this pandemic started, and then we also had these lockdown regulations, and everyone had to stay home. Of course, it became obvious that internet use will grow exponentially. For people to stay in contact, to work, to entertain themselves, or even to avoid boredom, like what they cannot do a lot of other things that they could otherwise. And then my professor had the idea that we could write a brief paper with such guidance, because when we usually, so we often go to schools, talk with parents mostly about adolescents, children's and adolescents internet use and gaming and social networking. And a lot of time we feel that parents are worried that their kids use the internet too much, and so we talk a lot with them. And also from the literature, from our research, from talking about with colleagues and with these parents, we came up with several guidelines that we usually tell these parents and everyone, and that can be useful. And we also have some feedback from the parents that yes, it works. So we thought that putting together a brief paper about this can be helpful for some people. And so we discussed it with my supervisor, the main idea of the paper and the guidelines. Then we put together the first draft. It was mainly me who was writing it, and my supervisor. And then he invited all those experts, or not all of them, but a lot of those experts we know and we highly recognize, to participate in writing. So they revised the paper, they gave us feedback on it, they gave a lot of other new ideas. We removed things, we put together new things in it. So we actually had much more thoughts and ideas at the end than at the beginning. And a lot of these experts are also doing work in some practical work. Some of them are only researchers, but some of them have clinical expertise. So they also have this practical knowledge on things. So we just put all those together. It's
Well, when I was preparing for this interview, or looking to organize an interview, I was looking for good guidance and comment on the impact that the internet would be having, because people were using it so much more. And your paper seemed to me to be, it was concise, it's relatively short, and at the same time, it was very rich. I thought the content was extremely strong, and it was certainly the best thing I could find. So I thought that it was, I was very lucky to be able to talk with you about it and share with others the advice which was there. Why did you decide that issuing and writing a paper like this was important? If that's not obvious, I guess that people are just using the internet more. But why did you feel it was important to produce it?
Yeah, it's. I think it's mostly from our practice from schools and worried parents, and we are sometimes even worried for ourselves, honestly, to sit so long in front of the computer or any device. So we just, and sometimes we also feel that there in the guidelines there are a lot of very obvious things, like I would say it's nothing special, but even though, or even like this, sometimes you just don't think of it. You have to remind yourself, and you have to remind our others, and then it helps. So we just thought that perhaps it can be helpful for people, even if they read it and that's, I was thinking of this, but still, if you just see it there together, it may help you more than you could help yourself alone.
Well, it gives very practical guidance. It's an academic paper, but at the same time, it gives very specific and practical things that people can do. And I will post a link to it next to
Thank you.
the video when students receive it.
Just one more thought. We also have a short brochure or book regarding problematic internet use, and it's also, so it has some theory in it, but it also has, again, a practical guideline part. It's there is a lot of overlap with this article, but not only, and it's more focused to parents regarding their kids. So I can link you that also if you are interested, because it's that may interest parents or your students who become parents, or so.
That would be fair. I'd love to see it, and and I did notice also today there is reported on the BBC's news website that there's a new report out in Britain. It comes from an organisation associated with Prince Charles in the British royal family, but it's critical. It says that increased use of the internet by children and teenagers, particularly, is something we should be concerned about because of the pandemic.
Even if we are not concerned, we should really pay attention. Mm-hmm. It's an important issue. Even if we are not worried, we don't have to be worried, I think, but we have to pay attention.
Are there particular groups of people who are vulnerable as far as their use of the internet is concerned?
Yes. So based on research, we can say that there are mostly adolescents and young adults. However, not only them. So basically, anybody and everybody who uses the internet in an intense way can be at risk, so has to pay attention. But obviously or not obviously, young people are more at risk, because they are, so internet is so much part of their lives that they get its all its positive and negative effects as well. And what is very important in this question is usually not the time per se what we spend on the internet, It's I will talk about this a bit more later on, but addiction is not about time. We can use something a lot and still use it in a healthy way. So the question is more about how we use it and for what we use it. So what motivates us? What are our goals with it? How we use it? If we can keep a healthy balance with a lot of other things in our lives, like social relationships, like work and school related duties, like we have hobbies outside of those on the internet or related to the internet, and when we can stop anytime we want, so like we are in control of the activity, that's all good and healthy. Whenever we start to lose control, or we try to use this activity to replace others, and especially to avoid, let's say, to avoid negative feelings related to our real life, like we have problems and we don't have the power or strength to face them and to try to solve them, and instead of solving them, we just sit down and escape or immerse ourselves in the virtual world, and then we just avoid those things. Then it can become problematic with time. So when we, let's say, when we use it in a not optimal way, um, yes, as an escapism. We can do this with other things. So we can do this even with work, to escape in work, to avoid our everyday problems, or we can do this with exercise, which seems to be healthy. But when you exercise, let's say 6 or 8 hours in a day, and you cannot control it, and you everything in your life is about exercise, is about how much protein you take, what you eat, how much exercise you do, how you look like. So when everything in your head is about exercise, and you start to avoid your friends or replace them by exercising, you don't speak with your family, you don't go to work, or so when everything else is neglected and you only do exercise, it doesn't matter that exercise in itself would be healthy. It will impair your life. So this is also with internet use, with gambling, with video gaming, with a lot of other things. Um,
So,
so I would say that especially those are at risk who are using the internet or anything else in such ways and for such purposes, to avoid problems in their lives, to escape, to immerse themselves. And
so that seems like very important advice, in the sense that if people think about their own internet use and are concerned about, whether or not it might be a problem, they should think about the impact it's having on their wider life.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I would say another example. You can use Tinder, the dating app, the dating app. You can use it in a very healthy way. You want to meet people, you want to date people, to meet people, to have sex, to whatever. You can use it in a healthy way. But when you just when you find yourself switching or swapping, or
Swiping.
how, so swiping, yes, swiping all day long on Tinder, and just trying to get as much attention as you can, and and you need this, for example, as a reinforcement, because you are otherwise you cannot value yourself. Just need all this positive feedback, that people want to meet you, want to have sex with you, for etc. And you use Tinder to gain self-esteem or value from it, then again it can be problematic. So it's always how we use things. This is always the question. And one can do a lot if we think about our own usage and our own motives and our own goals.
Very interesting and good advice. So one of the reasons that people might be using the internet more today is that they are not able to go out and meet people as they would have done in the past,
Yes.
because of the restrictions of COVID-19. And this seems to be, partly responding to a need they may have for connection with others. So, can you talk about how that might be impacting their use of the internet today?
Yes. I think this side or this part is the most beneficial uh, in general. With the pandemic and without the pandemic, so the fact that we can connect and keep in touch with people that otherwise are distant from us because of the pandemic or geographically, I think this is a huge benefit of the internet. And I don't say that we cannot make or do this in an excessive and problematic way, but it's usually not the problem. It's the problem more often starts or begins when we use the internet in a more lonely way. Let's say we watch pornography all day long alone and get pleasure from that, and we don't speak with others, we don't connect, we just enjoy or need or use that pornography, or if we gamble, or even with video games. uh, Video games can be played together with others, and it can be a very, very enhancing and beautiful social experience. uh, or we can play it alone or in a lonely way. Even if we play with others, we can play with friends or we can play with random strangers. And um, and problems usually begin when we do this activity in a lonely way. So we do not use it to connect with others, but we use it as an escape, and to get some kind of reinforcement, to get some kind of good feeling from it, but not necessarily not because of we are connecting with others, but because, let's say, we get rewarded in games. We get virtual rewards for our wins, or things, but still we are already not in relation with others, but just doing more and more and more gaming in a more not insane way, but excessive way and uncontrolled manner. uh, is this understandable?
I think so. And what it seems to suggest is that people should, when people are using the internet to go out and connect with others, partly because they're not able to during COVID-19, that on the whole, that's probably quite a good thing for them to do. It's when
I
they're
would
doing
say
things
yes.
more on their own to replace that social connection. That's a big change in their life. That instead of connection with others, they're doing other things which are
Yes, exactly.
less positive.
Yes. So I would say, and also research says that when we use the internet to connect in a meaningful way with others, then it's perfectly healthy and there is nothing wrong with it. And honestly, I was also thinking that we can say that we are kind of lucky, I think, that this pandemic hit us in 2020, and let's say not like 30 years ago, when we didn't have all this internet, everything what we have today, because now we can work from home, we can study from home, we can connect with all these people. 30 years ago, it would have been much, much more difficult for us to bear all this, I think.
Mm.
So actually, I'm happy that we are having this now. And yes, so one advice is to try to connect as much as possible with others, also through the internet. There are a lot of people who live by themselves, alone, not with their families, and they cannot connect because they have to stay home. Then for them, this possibility is a huge advantage. And even those who live in families, you have to entertain yourself, you have to meet friends. You cannot, I mean, it's also not very healthy to stay only with 2 or 3 or 5 people for a year without connecting with others. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there would be a very interesting paper, or maybe something longer than a paper, that said what would have happened if the pandemic had come and we didn't have the internet. I mean,
Yeah.
there are consequences, psychologically, I guess, but there are consequences economically and in other areas too that would have been much more severe, you would imagine.
Even worse. I think even like this, it's very, very bad, but it could have been worse.
Yes.
I think, yes.
I think so. I think so too. We've talked a bit about people's how this has influenced people in positive and negative ways. Then it's good they connect with others, but there is also the potential for bad behavior.
It is. Yes.
For people who are watching this and they're saying to themselves that their internet use is in areas that there may be some concern about, that it might be disordered, I guess is the term that is often used.
Yes.
What advice would you have for what they can do about that?
Yes. Um, so the first thing, what is important, I think, that this whole, so whether a behavior is disordered or not, is usually it can be decided or should be decided based on its impact. So when a person feels that the behavior is impeding his or her healthy functioning in life, then he or she could and should be concerned, I think. So this is mostly when we lose control. That is one very important sign. So when we feel that we are no longer in control of our own behavior. One example: I cannot stop watching pornography. I just feel that I if I don't do that, I will blow up, I will die, I don't know, I just really need to do that. And then I'm not in control anymore. And I'm doing it and I'm doing it and I'm not even feeling good anymore, but I still have to do it. It can be with anything else. I can use the social media in that way. So and at one point I feel that I am using it to avoid my bad feelings. If I don't use it, I get really anxious, worried, withdrawal symptoms, whatever, and I have to use it again. And then if I use it, I feel less bad. I feel, yeah, I feel less terrible. So it's not that I feel very good, I just feel less terrible. So these are bad signs. if someone feels this.
Mm-hmm.
And however, addiction is let's say when it comes for doctors, they usually have to decide if someone is sick, is diseased or not. However, otherwise, this addiction is a continuum. Much more, it's from the health or the healthy behavior is at one point, the disordered is at the other, and there is everything in between. So it's not that I'm healthy today and I'm addicted tomorrow. it's usually a process, a long process. So these symptoms or these problems just are coming step by step. And of course, it's the easiest to do anything about them when we catch them early. So at any point when we can notice that there is something wrong, we should try to act on it, to do something about it. Of course, we can do something about it when we are completely disordered also, but that's an unfortunate case. So we should try to do it, to do something more earlier. And I think that, so if we hit the, they say, the rock bottom, so if we hit that point when like everything already is really bad and tragic, then our advice is usually to ask for professional help, because at some points you just cannot do it anymore alone. It's very similar to drug addiction or alcoholism. At certain points you just cannot do it alone. I mean, cannot get out of it alone. And there are a lot of professionals, and in the United States, in Canada, so in more developed countries, there are actually a lot of places where someone can go with such problems. However, in earlier stages, sorry, and it's very important that it's, so one shouldn't be ashamed to have a problem, even to have a drug problem, to have an alcohol problem, to have a problem with video games or internet. It's not, I'm not saying that they do not have any responsibility in it, but it's not like there is anything wrong with them, they are guilty or something. It's a disease. A lot of things have to be together for someone to get diseased, and it's very important then that a person in such a situation to be able to ask for help in a shameless way. It's perfectly okay to go and ask for help, and nobody should judge you, or so they would help these people and understand them, and so this is very important. But if we are luckier, and if we are not in those or in that situation, we can, so for example, we can have we can notice that we were using social media. We started using social media, we enjoyed it, really good. But at one point, let's say, we can notice that any time when we have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, let's say in the bus stop or at home or anywhere, we just get to our phones and start to use the social media. Or we are anxious if we don't have our phone and we cannot use it. Or we are, anytime we hear these notifications, and then we get really excited and grab the phone, even if we speak with someone and we don't pay attention to them anymore, but we just check our phones. So there can be signs that show us that this is not perfectly okay anymore. I'm not saying that this is already a huge problem, but there are small signs. And there are a lot of things that we can do about this. First, and the most importantly, we should try to be as conscious about this as possible. So to pay attention, to monitor our own behavior in a conscious way. Or we, and we can do let's say some experiments. For example, we can do an experiment that let's say we take the kid, we go to the playground, let's say, or something, but we leave our phone at home, and then we pay attention, or we see how we feel at the playground for 2 hours without our phone, and then we can analyze our feelings, our emotions. Are we anxious? We are not anxious. We feel perfectly happy without it. How is it? So all this can help, and it's very important to monitor ourselves. Another trick or advice could be to either turn off the notifications on the phone, or if you don't do that, you can perhaps turn off the sound of the notifications. And for example, this is something I tried myself when I was at home with my child, like for 2 years or something like this. I had my notifications turned on, and of course we were playing with the kid. She was small, like 1 year old, so she couldn't talk, she couldn't give me a feedback or anything. The notification came, I heard the sound, I just grabbed my phone. Oh, what was it? Okay. I didn't pay attention to the kid anymore. And the kid couldn't give me a feedback. She couldn't say that she was angry on me or anything. And so I just also I needed time to realize that this is not okay, that I'm grabbing my phone instantly when something comes in. And then so I turned off the notification sound, and then instantly I could decide for myself when to check the phone, when to check if anything happened, and it was not the phone who controlled my behavior. So I just instantly felt that, hey, I'm in control again. I can decide about it, and it was really good. So these are small tricks, and let me say another one. If it's kind of old school, but someone can try it. If we use a watch, like a watch, and we don't use our phones to check the time, that also can make a difference, because what happens? We check our phone, what is the time? We click on it, and then we see, hey, we see the notifications instantly, something happened. Okay, so I wanted to check the time, but oh, okay, someone wrote me. Okay, let's see what was this. And then I'm realizing 10 minutes later that I'm using my phone and I'm chatting with someone or something, and I only wanted to see what the time was. So if I use a wristwatch, or I think this is the term, then you avoid this. So you just, okay, it's 10 o'clock, great, we can go on. We can continue what we were doing. We are not instantly chatting with someone. Yes. And more generally, I think it's very important to talk about this behavior with our families, with our friends. So to discuss all these things, like what are your habits, what are mine, how can we deal with this, how this impacts you, how this impacts our family. We can make let's say we can make rules that apply for the whole family. Like such good rules can be that we don't use our phones when we are eating together, or when we are, let's say, playing some what's the word, board games together, or let's say, or when we go hiking. Or so we can make such rules, and these are really good rules, because if we take away our devices, then we can have a much better time together, a more meaningful and richer time together. But in these cases, it is very, very important that adults and parents follow the exact same rules as the kids. It's not like, okay, you cannot use your phone because you're only 10 years old or 12, but I'm 30, so I can use it. It doesn't work like this. You have to be consistent in this, and as an adult, be as severe with yourself as you are with your kids.
Yeah, I spoke with someone a couple of years ago who said that the best thing a parent can do as far as influencing the behavior with the internet with their children is to have good behavior themselves, you know, and that resonated with me. I thought, oh yes, that makes a lot of sense.
It makes it only, this is what only makes sense, really.
Yes, that
Being
makes. Go
be,
ahead.
being
Sorry.
Yes, sorry. So being a good role model. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So yeah, we can tell the kids what they should do, but they will do what we are doing actually, or ultimately.
Yeah.
It's
That makes sense to me. And I also wanted to ask about the role that the internet companies have in creating this disordered behavior. So, are the applications and the devices, I guess, designed to encourage behavior that is disordered?
to encourage behavior not necessarily that is disordered, but which is excessive. And from excessive, so excessive is not disordered, but it's a risk factor. It's definitely a risk factor. And yes, we can say it very certainly that all these applications are designed intentionally in a way that they are as addictive as they can be. That's without a question, unfortunately.
So, the notifications, for example.
Of course. Yes. Yes. The notifications, the fact that when you swipe your news feed in the social media, it doesn't have an end. It never ends. It's not a coincidence. It never ends to be to keep you as long as it can. The whole video games, I think, are the best examples because they are really designed in that's really miraculous. I mean, how those are done. I also I just I recently watched the video. I highly recommend it to everybody. Actually, it's a video where a game designer talks on a conference, and he is actually talking about the tricks what they use in mostly mobile games, to get people not necessarily addicted, but to pay as much in the games as they can make them pay. And he is actually telling a lot of tricks, like psychological tricks, that design tricks or design mechanisms that are built in these games to make people stay there and pay as much as possible. And what he says at the very beginning, that was what I was really shocked about. So he opens his presentation and he says that he will tell a lot of tricks, like for games, and he also says, some people can be shocked to hear these, but I will leave morality out of this question. We can discuss it later if we have time. And then, of course, they don't have time. But he even laughs. He even laughs that, oh, I will leave morality out of this. We should discuss it some other time. Doesn't matter.
That's the most important part.
That entirely shocked me. His attitude toward this, because it's basically these are marketing tricks that are applied for 20, 30, 40, I don't know how many years. So these tricks are usually not very new. But the fact that there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who invent such tricks that make people do things that they do not necessarily want to, or even get disordered, or even get in debts because they gamble a lot, or they pay a lot on, even with mobile games, there are a few people who are really vulnerable and get hooked on these games, and then they spend the entire amounts of money on these games. And the people who invented these games and tricks, they are really happy that they get all that profit. And they leave the morality out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so...
Well, I think that, one of the things that I'm keen that people understand beyond the discussion that we're having today, the people who are students in the course I teach, is just to have a moral sense of the impact of the things they're doing with technology. When we look at a lot of areas in the course, and this is what we're looking at here is how the people's use of technology affects how they think. But the people who are working with that technology to influence the way that people think have a moral responsibility to do that in ways that are good and to not do it in ways that are bad. Your example is a very sad one.
It is.
Mm.
It's, yeah, I think it's, the whole issue is difficult because even as in politics or with marketing or with business, the short-term gains are huge if we do things in an immoral way. So I think that's the basic problem, that someone lets themselves be corrupted or not. I think that's a severe issue, and we cannot solve it now, of course, and we won't solve it. But it is, yes. So I think that for the students, especially for engineers and programmers and software designers, and so such students, it is very important to at least be conscious about the impact of their work. For instance, a lot of it could be read in the news also that people who were designing the like button for Facebook and for other applications, they have never ever thought that what huge impact the like button will have in the future. Their intentions were really good, so it was nothing bad about that. But they were never ever, they never ever thought that, let's say, the existence of the like button will lead to situations, for instance, when a vulnerable, like mentally, psychologically vulnerable adolescent will do silly, like completely stupid things and life-threatening things to get more and more likes. I don't know if you are aware or not. So on the social media, there are a lot of like challenges. I'm sure you heard about these. So a lot of challenges, and a lot of them are like life-threatening, like truly. For instance, one such a challenge is that you put your hand on the not heater, on where you cook the dishes, cook your meal.
Yeah,
So
on the stove. Yeah.
on the stove. Yes, sorry, thank you. So you
It's
put
okay.
your hand on the stove, and you have to keep it there as long as you can. And then if you can keep it there for long enough, then it's a huge something. You can put it on social media and you will get a lot of likes. Of course, your hand is like burned. You have to get your hand burned to get a lot of likes. Or there are challenges where adolescents are eating washing machine pillows, or those, the detergent.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't say that's, yeah. Or they or another challenge, you take a condom, you put it in one nostril or something, and then try to get it out on the other.
Oh.
Again, you can, so you it's possible to die from these challenges. And they do it because they are psychologically vulnerable, and they want to get a lot of likes. And so those who invented the like button, they have never ever thought that having the like button can have an impact, something like this. And I'm not saying that we should not have like buttons. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying that it's really important for everyone to be conscious that these things exist, and we should try to take care of ourselves, of each other, as much as possible. And there are actually some yeah, sometimes I'm sometimes I don't get the English words, but so there are some researchers and also people in business try to make improvements in technology that make the technology safer, like psychologically safer. So there are trials for this, and there are not movements, but even if you read research articles, there are research articles in this topic, that how can we make, let's say, social media safer, or video games safer, or pornography safer, or anything. So it is really important to think about these, I think.
What you're saying really seems to suggest that for people who are, software designers, game designers, or whatever it might be, that they almost have a greater responsibility
Yes.
to look as closely as they can, and to think as carefully as they can about the implications of what they're doing. That in the past they might not have done that as much as they could have done. Not necessarily saying they should have, or that they were negligent in some way, but
Yes.
that we all have a duty, if we have an influence over the development of technology, to think very, very carefully about how it will affect people.
Exactly. Yes. This you yes, you summarized it well, I think.
I'm
Yes.
glad. Okay,
And
so I just got. Sorry,
sorry,
go
and
ahead.
yeah, one more thought. So I'm also not saying that video games shouldn't be addictive. I'm not necessarily saying this, because these are the same elements that make games to be good and enjoyable, and a lot of people still can can enjoy them in a healthy way. So I'm not necessarily saying this is or wrong in itself. But for instance, one can also, a video game developer company, can also think of, let's say, additional ideas, additional mechanisms or elements that help someone to take control of their gaming. For example, if you play a match-based game, League of Legends or Fortnite or whatever, it could be that the game, let's say you play 5 matches or 10 or whatever, I don't know, 5 or 10, and then afterwards the game tells you in a message that, hey, you were playing 5 matches in a row. I don't know how many time passed. You should stand up and go and drink a glass of water. You should talk with your mother or whatever, someone around you. Or you should take a break. And then, so let's say such a small message that comes from the game it can help a lot of people. It is something that make people or players more aware of their own behavior. And if it comes from the game, they might take it more seriously as then it comes from, I don't know, a parent, and they are angry on them that they don't let them play. And these are just simple and very simple, small things that can have a huge impact also. And I think that if the game designer company just has some thoughts about this also, and not only about how to make the games more and more and more addictive, that would be a great step forward.
That makes sense. And of course, we have the opposite now, which is that they get rewarded the more they play.
Of course. Oh, yes. It's also actually in China. In China, they view this video game addiction whole differently. It's a public health threat. They take it very seriously. They are frightened about it. And what they do on a governmental level, they make rules and regulations. And for instance, game developers who had games published in China had to do, for instance, that let's say in an online role-playing game, your character develops, you play more, develop more, get rewarded more. But after, let's say, 3 hours of continuous play, if you play more, you don't develop and you don't get rewarded anymore. It's the system stops rewarding you. And this was actually a regulation coming from the Chinese government. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that this had a good impact, or it was, how should I say, it had a huge benefit on the society. I'm not saying it, because these regulations have to be done very carefully, and usually it's good if they are done based on research and research findings, not just what the politician thinks. But again, the idea that something like this can be done, and it could come from game developers. So there are a few ways that can come from the game itself, or from the social media software itself, or that could help. So as an idea, it can be helpful.
And I guess in theory, a reward could be provided for taking a break from the game for a certain
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yes. Yes.
But interesting. Okay, I just got 2 final questions. I know your time is tight, but this has been a very interesting conversation. One thing I wanted to cover was that at the moment, with the lockdown and with people dealing with the pandemic, I've noticed people saying that this means they can either allow their children to have more time on the internet because they're not able to go and play with their friends, or if they're older, that they can binge their use of video games, or spend time in disordered type activity on the internet, because there is the pandemic. And so what they seem to be thinking is that it is acceptable in some way for them to have a degree of negative behavior because of the virus. And I just wanted to ask for your comment on that. What you would say to someone who said something like that.
Yeah. Yes, this is a good and important question. As a parent, I was dealing with it very heavily also this spring, because kindergartens were closed and we were at home in a very small apartment. We had to work from like home office, and we had our 3.5-year-old daughter with ourselves, and we had to try to work, and actually we couldn't really work, honestly. and yeah, it was a question: should we let her watch 3-4 times more television or anything else than otherwise? And what we came up or ended up doing was a kind of a compromise. So she watched significantly more television than she usually does, but we didn't let her do it all day long. So we didn't work as much as we would do usually, and yeah, so we made a compromise between work and watching television. And I think, it's very difficult to tell people what to do, because every single person is in a unique situation. And I cannot say, and I don't want to say, that anyone is a bad parent who lets their kids use their devices much more. I can, honestly, I can understand them very, very well, because I was in this situation, and it's incredibly difficult. So one thing I would say is, let's be kind and apologetic with ourselves. So if I let my kid watch television for, let's say, 3 hours instead of 1, I should not feel that I'm the worst mother in the world, because that really certainly doesn't help. I should realize that this is hopefully a period that we have to survive, and in this period, let's say, we can do things differently than we do otherwise, but be conscious about it again. So that's very important. So let's say I let her watch television for 3 hours, but I take care that I still play a bit with her, I interact with her, I speak with her. So it's not only the television. And yeah, so everyone has to make additional efforts in such a situation, but I think that we can also let ourselves a bit of yeah, so we can let technology to help us in such a situation, and be less strict and severe with ourselves. It's just, I'm saying this, but if we are conscious and pay attention to these things, I don't think that if we let the kid for like 2 months or 3 months to watch a bit more television or anything than otherwise, it won't ruin her life, it won't ruin our lives. We just have to try to keep things as balanced as possible within the circumstances.
That makes sense. So I have one final question, because I know that you need to get away. And it is the one that I ask everyone I interview. It is that the people who you'll be speaking to and watching this video are mostly at the start of their careers. And so I ask if you have any words of advice on anything whatsoever that you would like to give them.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can I can only repeat myself, and I think that, let's say, if they I hope that if they watch this video, and if they ever anytime think about the impact or the moral consequences of their own work, I think it's more than enough. It's more than enough. And the other important thing is to be aware of their behavior also as a role model for others, for their families, kids, or friends, and to try to be as conscious about it as possible. And I would also say that if we have people around us that we think that would need help because of their technology use, it's problematic. I think one, and also people who are working in this industry should be supportive and advise for these people to get professional help without being ashamed, because that's also very important. Yeah.
Good advice and valuable advice, and thank you for talking to me today. I greatly, I appreciate it. I know it's going to be valuable for the people who watch it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. These were really good questions, and yeah.